my opinion that the most important character in Avengers Age of Ultron is not Iron Man or Captain America or Ultron himself. The most important character in this film is Hawkeye. I know that might sound like a bold statement at first, and it's not something that is immediately apparent, but hopefully by the end of this video you'll get the gist of what I'm talking about. The movie starts off in a fictional country known as Sokovia, where the Avengers are conducting a raid on a secret Hydra base in hopes of retrieving Loki's scepter, which is now being held by Baron Wolfgang von Strucker. Once again, the very first Avenger that we see on camera is Hawkeye, as he takes out several Hydra members with his bow and arrow from the back of a military vehicle, which is being driven by Black Widow. Sensing that the Avengers are closing in, Strucker releases the two Maximoff twins, Pietro and Wanda Maximoff. Pietro Maximoff has the power of super speed, while Wanda is able to use telekinesis. You'll see that both of these characters will play an important role in Hawkeye's development throughout the film. So we cut back to Hawkeye as he takes aim at a machine gun turret, and Pietro uses his abilities to intercept the arrows. In a flash, Hawkeye is knocked to the ground by Pietro, who turns around casually and says, "You didn't see that coming?" The movie establishes this line as a running joke throughout the film, as Hawkeye's precision and accuracy are finally put to the test. In the next moment, Hawkeye is wounded by a gunshot. Natasha immediately comes to his rescue, and we are reminded of the strong bond that exists between the two of them. Natasha will always have Hawkeye's back because of the debt that she owes him. Now, this opening scene is interesting because we're seeing Hawkeye's human shortcomings. His wounds illustrate that he is perhaps the only Avenger that can actually get fatally injured by a stray bullet, to the point where he has to get flown back to the Quinjet. It only reveals his bravery and moral fortitude that he keeps putting himself in harm's way in order to do what is right. We'll see this further illustrated in later parts of the film. Back at Avengers headquarters, Hawkeye is treated by Dr. Helen Cho. This scene serves as foreshadowing for several upcoming events later in the movie. For one, the technology being used to heal Hawkeye is a version of the regeneration cradle, which will later be used to create Vision. In this scene, it is merely used to heal Hawkeye's injuries. As he's being treated, Black Widow walks into the room and says jokingly, "Are you sure he's going to be okay?" Pretending to need this guy really brings the team together. This is the first of many self-referential jokes that the movie makes about Hawkeye's usefulness. The previous Avengers movie didn't really delve into this idea, but Age of Ultron seems really concerned about Hawkeye's utility, especially when he's compared to real superheroes with actual powers. Another bit of foreshadowing comes from Dr. Cho casually mentioning Hawkeye having a girlfriend, which he denies. As we all know, this is not the full story. So the main villain of this film was a form of artificial intelligence known as Ultron, who was created by Tony Stark as a way to fulfill his goal of achieving global security. When Ultron finally becomes sentient, we know immediately that something is wrong. You see, Ultron sees the problem as humanity itself, and his goal is to remedy the problem by any means necessary, even if it means causing a global extinction event. After attacking the Avengers, Ultron recruits the twins, Wanda and Pietro, to help him obtain vibranium in order to build a weapon that will destroy the Earth and everything on it. When he's confronted by the Avengers, he sends the twins into battle. During this battle, Hawkeye is confronted by Wanda, who tries to mess with his mind using telekinesis. As you might remember from the original Avengers, Hawkeye spent a good portion of the film under the control of Loki, so he's familiar with the experience of having his actions and thoughts manipulated by another person. Hawkeye takes out an electric shock arrow, places it on Wanda's forehead, and then humorously remarks, "I've done the whole mind control thing. Not a fan." Seconds later, he is once again knocked to the ground by Pietro, who grabs Wanda and then dashes away, leaving Hawkeye on the ground. Since Hawkeye is the only one who didn't fall under Wanda's spell, he does the only thing he can. He takes it upon himself to care for the remaining crew as Tony tries to contain the Hulk. After the events of South Africa, we see Hawkeye piloting the Quinjet, as per usual. Hawkeye was also the one to operate the jet in the last Avengers movie. My guess is that this is obviously a very suitable position for him because of his keen eyesight, his pinpoint accuracy, and his general perceptiveness. Anyway, Hawkeye is deliberately vague about where exactly he's taking them. All he says is that he's going to a safe house. We see them land on a farm, and it is soon revealed that this is where Hawkeye lives. Not only does he live here, but he lives here with other people. That's right, Hawkeye is a family man with a wife and children. At the time, this was considered a big deal because Hawkeye was the first Avenger to have a family. Upon reflection, I think that this is one of the most important aspects of the movie for several reasons. Right off the bat, If there were any questions as to whether Hawkeye and Black Widow's relationship was anything other than strictly platonic, those questions are now put to rest. Second, we realize that Hawkeye is putting a lot on the line to be an Avenger. He has a lot more to lose than the other Avengers do. He has a family at home that worries about him every time he goes out. You see, this reveals the innate goodness of Hawkeye's character. He's not a god with superpowers. He's just a regular guy who sees it as his duty to do his job. As we see in the opening scene, he's the only one who can actually get seriously harmed, and yet he continues to fight in service of what's right. The fact that he has a family only raises the stakes to a whole nother level. The third reason is perhaps the most salient. You see, Ultron's entire plan is predicated on the idea that humanity is evil and has to die out. When he's brought into existence, all we see is war and destruction. But when we arrive at Hawkeye's farm, we are presented with this beautiful and idyllic vision of human life. Hawkeye and his family represent the polar opposite of what Ultron believes to be true. It's a direct refutation of his philosophy. Going further, there's a scene between Hawkeye and his wife, in which the question of whether Hawkeye is actually needed comes up yet again. Where the previous Avengers film acquainted us with Hawkeye the Great Marksman, this film takes a self-aware approach to his humanity. Yes, he's fragile and imperfect, but he is innately good and filled with limitless potential. So this is why Hawkeye is ultimately needed. He's there to remind Earth's mightiest heroes of what they are fighting for. You look at Hawkeye's family and you think, this is what's at stake. This is worth everything. In the final battle, Hawkeye finds himself trapped in a battle-torn building with Wanda Maximoff. We see that Wanda is full of shame because of her past actions, and she blames herself for the current situation. What happens next is an echo of what happened with Black Widow in Budapest. Hawkeye sees the good in Wanda, the same way he saw the good in Natasha. He comforts Wanda, essentially saying it doesn't matter what she's done in the past. What matters is what she does right now. He says if you step out that door, you are an Avenger. In other words, he's offering her a shot at redemption, a chance to rectify her past actions. This is because Hawkeye sees the good in people, in humanity, in direct contrast to Ultron. Indeed, during this scene, his own humanity is once again brought to the forefront. We're fighting an army of robots, he says, and I have a bow and arrow. None of this makes sense, but I'm going back out there because it's my job. Even in the midst of chaos, Hawkeye sees it as his duty to fight for what's right. Towards the end of the battle, Hawkeye sees a kid trapped in the rubble. He instinctively goes to try to save the kid, which puts him in the middle of gunfire. As Hawkeye turns his back, he realizes that Pietro has intercepted the bullets and sacrificed his life for Hawkeye. Before dying, he once again says, "I bet you didn't see that coming," bringing his arc to a close. Later in the film, we see that Hawkeye has named his new baby after Pietro. So you see, Hawkeye represents what it means to be human. He's a direct contrast to Ultron, and he signifies all of humanity's greatest strengths: redemption, forgiveness, and self-sacrifice. Alright guys, that's it for now. My next video will be about Hawkeye's role in Captain America: Civil War. Please like this video and subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you next time.